Thank you. No disclosures. So what's marketing? Marketing is the process of creating and managing your public image and reputation. Put simply, your public image and reputation are your brand, and the process of creating and managing that brand is marketing. So the questions you need to ask yourself are these. What's your brand? What's your purpose when you're going out to market? Who's your target market? Those are all strategic. And then you start talking about tactics. What medium is going to best meet your target market? Whether you're doing awareness, just trying to make people aware that you exist, or are you doing a campaign around some event? How do you measure success of your marketing campaign? What are the barriers and what are the risks? So what's the value of a brand? It's the amount of money that went into creating this brand. Just do it. Nike spent a ton of money. It's worth a lot. So what's your brand? What are you bringing to the table? What makes you different? You have to figure that out, and you have to figure out how you're going to present that. Is it your training? Is it your experience, your outcomes, or general qualities like relatability or availability? Usually it's a combination of these things. This is something that none of us want to see. It's an empty waiting room. So you have to decide what your purpose is. For most of us, it's going to be to increase patient volume. But you can also use it for professional development. You can make yourself more visible to your superiors, to your peers, or to the general population. And when it comes to social media marketing, you can become an influencer. Who's your target? Well, if you're trying to increase your patient volume, it's usually going to be patients or referring providers. But again, you can look at peers and superiors as people that you market. Next thing is what medium is going to reach your target demographic. I decided to call it analog, but I guess it's really old school. So face-to-face, print media, billboards, radio, TV, those all work. And then there's digital. And for the rest of this talk, if I mention internet, I'm talking about websites and blogs. And then there's social media. All of these things take time. You have to figure out how much time you're willing to spend. The nice thing about so-called analog marketing is you create an ad and then you're done with it. You have no more time investment. When you start getting to digital marketing, you're going to spend increasingly amounts of time depending on what you do. For instance, Twitter, you basically have to do every day, maybe every hour. If you move to blogging, maybe you can get by with once a week. Why social media or why digital media? People spend about 6 hours a day on the internet. They spend 2 hours a day doing social media. So there's a lot of exposure there. The important thing to remember about social media specifically, but all forms of advertising, is you're trying to drive people to a website in most cases. That's where you're going to make the sale, and the sale is basically a phone call to your practice. When you look at the internet, about almost 90% of the population uses the internet, while only about 60% use social media. On the other hand, the social media is done on the cell phone, so you're actually having patients walk around or your target market walk around with your advertising device in their hand most of the time. The other issue is use. People use the internet daily about 80% of the time. When you start looking at social media, you have another couple of questions to ask. What's the penetration of that particular platform? So Facebook is used by about 80% of the population, and Instagram about a third of the population. But it's not just the number using it, it's how much they use it. Facebook is used by people that use Facebook, use it daily in about 3/4 of the time, Instagram about 50% of the time. So those are the two platforms that I would go after immediately if you're going to use digital media. So are you just building visibility? I'll show you an example of that. Or are you building a campaign? Campaigns are built around events. For bariatric surgery, it's typically the new year. That's usually a great one because people want to make changes, and that's when they become interested in bariatric surgery. But it can also be around an event like a meeting, or in the case I'll show you, around a graduation party. So what's the formula? There is no formula. You have to figure it out yourself. It's going to depend on your practice. If you're, say, in a rural MIS or general surgery practice with more mature providers, which means old, and who aren't using digital media, maybe they have established referral patterns, you have to decide what your brand is going to be. If you're bringing robotics to this location, maybe it's robotics or advanced minimally invasive surgery. Since you're in a market where you're not going to have the digital penetration, this is a time to go door to door and shake hands with people and introduce yourself. You should have a website, either a hospital or a personal website. You can't really use social media to affect the providers, but maybe you can drive the patients to ask their provider to be sent to you if they need an operation. Also remember that you need to reassess your brand, because you can't sell yourself as a MIS surgeon forever. You have to start bringing in outcomes and other components that make you more attractive. On the other hand, if you're in a bariatric surgery practice, say it's saturated or urban market, you have to bring something else. And the example I'm going to show you, it's really relatability. You should meet with providers because it's low-hanging fruit. You need a website. You might use YouTube videos of operations as an additional marketing tool, and social media becomes very important. And unfortunately, probably the best person I've seen is in my market. This is Elizabeth Dovik's website at Greater Baltimore Medical Center. The website is good, but her social media marketing is astounding. Here's campaign marketing around a reveal party, and on the other side is an awareness marketing campaign where she was just putting before and after pictures up. She's done extraordinarily well using Instagram and Facebook. So when you're marketing, you need to figure out how to define your success. And most of the time, it's increasing patient volume. You need to figure that out to start. You need to be able to track your marketing efforts. You need to understand the return on investment of your marketing techniques. If you're using print medium or ads, you should use unique identifiers. There's actually fancy ways to do it, but the simple way to do it is use a unique email or phone number, email address or phone number. And that way you can track where the patients are coming from. You should always survey your patients to find out how they found out about you. And just remember, if some component of your marketing strategy isn't working, you can change it, or you should stop doing it. Don't waste your time and money doing things that don't work. The other thing that you can do to look at measuring success are analytics, and this gets into well, it's a big topic. So basically, analytics just measures the contact to your website to an action, typically calling your office. And you're talking about optimizing that process. There are similar analytics available for social media. They're different for every platform. You have to understand exactly what they're talking about. The names of the metrics are often very similar, but they're calculated in different ways. So what are your barriers? We all have employment restrictions. You may not be able to have your own website. You may not be able to run your own Instagram account or Facebook account. There's a matter of time. These things take a lot of time to do. They cost a lot of money. One way to get around the time of doing social media marketing is to have employees run the social media for you, but that's going to cost money. And then there's HIPAA issues for all of these, or for digital media specifically. The risks, professionalism is a area of risk. These are, the graph on the right is a list of state medical boards that have received complaints about professionalism on social media. Virtually everyone has some issue with some physician. There's also backlash, especially on social media or review sites, and it's typically related to unhappy patients. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about managing your brand. So the first thing that you need to do is check all your online profiles. Make sure that the rating sites, you'll find, even if you're not a practicing physician, you will be on rating sites. Make sure that any errors on those sites are corrected. Make sure you complete your profile. You don't want to look like the person at the top with a no picture. What you want to do is give the people an impression of you when they see your picture online. You want to monitor what's being posted. You can do that manually, going to each site every certain interval. You could also use Google Alerts, which for me doesn't work really well because there's another Mark Kligman who happens to be a musicologist, and I really have little interest in klezmer music, so that didn't work for me. You need to improve your patient experience. The patient's experience affects their perceived value of care, and that's reflected on your rating. So you need to make sure access to your, for patients is easy, it's courteous, you keep on schedule, that when you're in the room, you don't look rushed. You don't want to sit there with your hand on the doorknob while you're talking to the patient. That'll be perceived badly. You want to have eye contact, and you want to focus on patient education. Well, despite doing all those things, you're going to get bad reviews, and you need to understand how to deal with those. You need to remember that while the patient isn't constrained by HIPAA, you are. You shouldn't get in an argument online, and if you have an issue with a patient, it's better to recommend to them that they contact your office and you can have an offline discussion. The other thing you can do about these bad reviews is get good reviews, and the best way to do that is ask patients to put up reviews. And you can dilute those bad reviews and your online reputation will be enhanced. So next steps, you should review your current online profiles, set up some type of monitoring process. When you get a new job, review your employment restrictions so you can understand what you can do. You can start planning right now. You can do social media now and establish an online presence now. And you need to figure out what brand you're going to present as you're doing that. One thing that I need to caution you about is you need to understand how much time you have available and don't overextend yourself. The worst thing to see is a social media site that hasn't been worked on for months. So that's just a basic overview. This is a huge topic, and you'll have to work your way through it as you move into practice. Thank you.